Okay, Scott, thank you very much. And as we promised, we'd be talking with somebody from Fitchburg High School's coaching staff, and we got the big man, Tom Frank, who, of course, is in charge of most of the defensive duties of the Red and Gray, and, of course, out here scouting Leominster and Nashua both. Nashua, of course, they'll be facing before Leominster 28-0. Somebody would have told you Leominster was going to be leading 28-0 at halftime. I wouldn't have believed it. I don't know about you.
Well, David, it's been a long time since Leominster's beaten Nashua in Nashua. I felt before I came up, I told Coach Gerard with me tonight that Leominster beat him 4 touchdowns, but I was wrong. Leominster may beat him 100-0 tonight.
Well, of course, the question is whether or not how freely Huck is going to be substituting in that second half. But Leominster has gotten some breaks, but they've made some breaks. They've been hitting hard, forced a couple of fumbles, and that's what you got to do to win ball games. And they're executing well, as they always do.
Well, I'll tell you, their defense looked like it's the same defense they left off with last year up in Springfield. Those big Nada and some of those kids come flying through there like there's nobody blocking on Nashua's ball club. They're picking them back up in the backfield, they're sacking that quarterback, and they can't even get outside on them. So it's a super defense, but that offense, they explode out there like they got rockets on their heels.
Try to put you into the position of Coach Ken Parody of Nashua tonight. After what's happened here in the first half, what would you tell the club at halftime? What would you try to do to stop this Leominster machine?
Well, they've made some very serious fundamental mistakes out there, fumbling the ball, especially on that last time they kicked off deep in the territory and tried to run a reverse. And it was just a poor executed handoff, and Garekis didn't get good control of the ball. So fundamental mistakes that he's going to have to correct, and then he's going to have to get the ball in the air to try to get back into the ball game. So he's got to get those offensive linemen giving his quarterback a little protection.
Let's leave this game for a moment and talk about Fitchburg now, who, of course, will be seeing tomorrow afternoon their second home game of the year against St. Peter's, a club that gives Fitchburg fits over the years. They have that championship year a couple years ago. They were the only club that beat Fitchburg, and that was the first game. What are you looking for tomorrow?
Well, David, we watched them against Catholic Memorial. Catholic Memorial, you know, is defending champions, too. They were ahead all the way until midway through the third period down in Boston. And Catholic Memorial started to picking up St. Peter's blitz and then just rolled on like a championship team does and beat them quite soundly in the fourth period. St. Peter's is not as big as they've been in the past, but they're still pretty good-sized ball players. Their tackles are about 225, 230. Their guards are about 190, it looks like. So I expect a real hard-hitting ball game, as St. Peter's always does.
Of course, Fitchburg is now 1-1 on the year, won their opening ball game at home, and then last week kind of soundly defeated by Chicopee 21-0. A lot of times scores in ball games don't indicate the type of play. How did Fitchburg look against Chicopee?
Well, David, we were psyched going into the ball game. We took the opening kickoff and drove about 69 yards and then fizzled out right on the 1-yard line. And then they broke a big one, you know, the one that was written up in the papers, everything, 99 yards. The kid made a super run, and we had a couple of kids get blown out, and nobody could catch the kid. He's very fast. Our defense, you know, is completely rebuilt. In other words, we got 2 kids back from last year on the defense, and so they handled us. The weights in the papers was a little wrong. They were about 220 from tackle to tackle, and so the biggest kid on our ball club was about 205. And so they just manhandled us, and they moved right on down the field every time they got the ball. And then we let them out of the hole a few times too. You know, we don't usually do that, but that 3rd and long and stuff like that, and they broke some big ones, and so you know, with inexperienced kids, you just couldn't contain the psych for long periods of time.
How do you look at the NCMC? Of course, Leominster, from what we've seen, this is the second ball game we've seen them. They've looked tremendous both ball games. They, year after year, field a great squad, and this year it looks like they're going to be another strong one. How about the other teams in the NCMC? Who do you think are going to be the ones that are maybe going to give Fitchburg a little bit of trouble?
Well, Leominster, you know, as you said, is by far looks like to me the favorite of the teams that I've seen play so far. And we didn't get a good chance to look at them because we didn't have the jamboree. But we were out last Sunday watching Gardner, and Gardner's big. They're inexperienced like we are, but they moved the ball pretty well the first half against St. Bernard's. But St. Bernard's is a good ball club. This looks to me like the best ball club St. Bernard's had in the years that I've been at Fitchburg High.
Well, they certainly got a lot of size, something they haven't had in the past. And we were talking with Jim Taddeo, and we told him we were pretty impressed with what we saw. We had some technical problems and didn't see too much of that first half. But how about some of the other teams now? Athol, of course, being a very small school, they really don't have a heck of a lot of personnel to choose from. But what have you heard about Athol this year?
Well, I was talking to the Athol coaches Sunday when we were scouting Gardner. They seem to think they're going to do all right. Tomorrow's their test. Tonight's their test. They're playing Gardner tonight, so we can pretty well make a judgment after that to see how strong Athol is going to be. Wachusett was beaten soundly by St. Peter's last week. Wachusett's got a lot of kids in their school. They just don't seem to come up with a big one in football. They've got good tackles and good interior linemen, but they just don't seem to come through in the clutches.
How do you account for the fact? Whenever I talk to either Fitchburg or Leominster coaches, I've asked this question to many people before. I don't think I've asked you. Leominster, of course, year after year, and it's not just football, but baseball, not so much basketball, but not only on the high school level, but say Pop Warner teams, American Legion teams. Always seems that Leominster, despite the fact they're a smaller city than, say, Fitchburg, they always seem to come out consistently year after year, on the average, with a better product. And I've asked people why, and everybody's got their own judgment. And
well, David, there are some outstanding coaches in Leominster. The entire community is sports-minded. There was a lot of emphasis placed on it. The parents get out and watch these kids in Pop Warner and Little League and things like that, and they don't really push their kids, but they provide the opportunity for the kids to get out and play. People consider, Leominster is still smaller than Fitchburg, but Fitchburg High now has 526 boys to choose from, and Leominster goes over 780. So Leominster right now, Leominster and Burncoat and Daugherty are the three biggest schools in Worcester County.
And, of course, Fitchburg would be right behind that.
Right. We're about fourth.
Right. Getting back to tonight's ball game, of course, Leominster really rolling 28-0 here over Nashua. I believe they did beat Nashua here 2 years ago, but Nashua beat them last year down there at Doyle Field, one of only two losses that the Blue Devils suffered. Nashua, year after year, comes up with strong squads, but this year they just don't have the size. We were talking with Ken Parity before the ball game. He said this year we don't have a big fullback, something they've had before. Jim Doyle is their fullback, and he's 175, so that doesn't help.
No, David. Doyle is a good operator. He's small in stature, but he runs his plays real well. And when they do give him a decent hole in there, that kid scats down the field. He makes 7-8 yards before you realize it. The double sessions in Nashua hurts Nashua. Nashua's got 3,700 kids in school, but they're building a new high school out on Route 3 there, and so I expect in another couple of years after they finish that high school, we'll see sports back to the way it was, a few years ago when Buzz Harvey was head coach.
Getting back to Fitchburg now, something you know a little bit pretty well, of course, Fitchburg High football. This year's squad, after 2 games now, of course, that opening game victory and then losing to Chicopee, where do you think the work is needed the most?
Well, David, as we said, we're just completely rebuilding the defense. Our offensive line last week did exceptionally well being outweighed. It was a matter of not sustaining it after we got our hump broke on that big run. We kind of had an emotional letdown. But again, when we got the ball, we'd move it for 2 or 3 first downs, and then we'd get some kind of mental breakdown, a legal procedure, offsides. So we've really spent most of our practice time this week trying to get that defense shaped up, because if you can keep a team from scoring, they're not going to beat you. So that's why we feel if more experience these kids get in that defense, then the better off we are later on in the season.
How about, I've been meaning to ask somebody that would know, of course, Larry Bizzotto was one of the mainstays last year at Fitchburg High, now playing with Tulane. Have you heard anything about Larry, about how he's done?
Well, the last account I had from Larry, he was alternating second and third team as a defensive middle guard. And the word we got out down there, the coaches were very proud of him. And as a freshman, he makes the traveling squad at Tulane is really good. I'm really proud of Larry. The boy worked real hard for us all the time he was in high school, and we were fortunate to get him into a school like Tulane.
Well, John, we want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and so far we've seen a pretty good ball game for Leominster. I know you're not thrilled about it because come Thanksgiving morning you got to face these guys, but we want to thank you again for coming by and talk to us, and we'll be talking to you tomorrow prior to that St. Peter's game.
Okay, David, thank you.
Thank you.